Hi, this is Victoria, part three of talking to Anxiety Society, my Twitter friend. I just wanted to clarify one thing about, or maybe just add to what I said about dealing with that moment of onset of that adrenaline rush. And to say that I forgot to tell you that I always immediately go into breath work, which um, I have this one practice. It's really so easy. It's amazing that it works like a drug. And it's the 4-7-8 breath that I learned from Dr. Andrew Weil. Um, I think I got a set of his CDs when I first started trying to deal with anxiety. That was one of the first things I realized was, this is so much about breathing because anxiety really constricts the breathing. It always does for me. Um, And so when I'm feeling the onset of anxiety symptoms, what I would always do is say, again, first, as I was talking about in the last video I made, kind of observing it with compassion and saying, oh, that's interesting. I seem to be having some anxiety. And in that initial moment, there's such an important opportunity to either kind of spin out into that self talk of panic, anger, disappointment. Oh my God, it's happening again, which of course feeds more fear. And that's one of the cruelest things about anxiety disorder is that the fear of another anxiety episode keeps us anxious. It's just so sad because we're like wanting to do something or be somebody, and going like, oh, but I don't know when I'm going to have that really uncomfortable, horrible experience again. So I'm now living in that fear. And it's just a really unfair kind of prison to get into that our bodies and our adrenal systems or whatever kind of trap us in. And that's why I have so much compassion and just sorrow for the suffering of anxiety, people who are dealing with this. So in that initial moment of that, uh-oh, here it comes again, we do have like a little window of time where we have some choices. It's a little window. And the choice is either to start telling that story of, oh my God, oh no, where we're clenching up and going, this is happening again, or to say, oh, look at that. I seem to be having these sensations. Oh, okay. I'm not going to wonder why, because sometimes it doesn't make any sense. I'm not going to start telling myself a story about how I have this disorder and I'll never get better, because that's not nice and it's not kind to yourself, okay? So don't tell yourself mean stories about yourself. I don't want you to do that, okay? Um, Or we can say, this is happening. Okay, well, I've been through this before. I certainly recognize these feelings and sensations. And then for me, I would always say, oh, I need to take care of myself. Okay, that self parenting voice that kicks in. What might you need right now? Um, and I've kind of trained myself to respond. I need to start my breathing exercises, and I'm going to breathe in for 4. I'm going to hold it for 7 with my, trying to be calm with calm and kind thoughts. And then I'm going to exhale slowly. I think it's through the mouth for a count of 8. So I go in for 4, in through the nose, hold it, and then out gently, not like puffing out, but just exhaling gently for a count of 8. And when I exhale, I have my tongue at the roof of my mouth. This is the opposite of hyperventilating. That's what Dr. Weil teaches, that this breath, this 4-7-8 breath, is actually the opposite of hyperventilating. So it actually does do something good for the brain and everything. I don't care what it does to the brain. It just does good things for me. I don't know. I think those of us with anxiety often live a lot in our heads, and we do tend to think hard about things and maybe overthink them, and that can be part of getting kind of wrapped up in the story of anxiety and I'm there's something wrong with me. And my understanding of social anxiety, which is not really a format I've ever had, because often my anxiety symptoms would get me out of the house, out of solitude, and with people where I often experienced great comfort because people were around. And I thought, I might be kind of freaking out in my head right now, but if I'm sitting here, a coffee shop or something with a lot of other people, I'm okay. I must be okay. And I do want to say this to you too, because I'm a minister, and I can tell you this as a professional who spends a lot of time with people. Most people think that they are um, weird or unlikable in some special, unique way, or they have beliefs about themselves that are very unkind and judgmental and not fair and not helpful, to their growth as and their flourishing as free, spiritually free human beings. Um, and that's a lifelong struggle for almost everybody on the planet. So as you are isolated, and I hear you saying constantly through your tweets that you are alone, you're isolated. um, I'm gonna recommend a spiritual practice for you. Okay, I'm gonna recommend this, and you don't have to do it. This is me from a pastoral perspective. I'm gonna recommend that when you feel isolated and alone, and like a big old weirdo who has social anxiety and really can't handle things, and you're getting into that shame spiral and all that, I'm gonna recommend that you find a quiet place inside of yourself to hold in prayer or good thoughts or however you want to do that, humanity as a whole, and that you take a few minutes every day to move beyond the borders of your thoughts about yourself, and to hold suffering humanity in your thoughts and prayers for healing and compassion. I think that might help you in some ways um, connect your own suffering with the human condition, so that you don't, even if you're physically alone and isolated, that you understand, that you begin to understand truly that you are not isolated as a human being, that you are in solidarity with the whole species, which is a very anxious species. And that one of the things you might consider about yourself is that you are, as someone suffering with debilitating social anxiety, that you are in some ways holding on to the pain and suffering of humanity in your own being in a way that that is because you're sensitive and you're open, and that your heart is open to that suffering, and that may be part of what you're taking in. So acknowledging that anxiety makes you not a weirdo, but a deeply sensitive human being who is feeling the anxiety of the world, that may be something that will help you shift your thinking, so that when you feel the sensations you can interrupt them by saying, oh, this is happening, this makes sense, this is a very anxious species, I'm feeling some of that on behalf of myself and maybe humanity or the world. I'm going to start my breathing now so that I don't have to suffer in this way. To be mindful of the suffering of the world does not require me to be a martyr to it in a way. You know what I mean? Like, you will eventually, I believe, get to the point where you can be attentive to the world and be a sensitive and open person, but not have the anxiety that you have now. That you can get there. Okay? So, I'm going to shut up now. That was a lot. I know.